Suit up and step into the shadows with Daddy Bat Night, a happily married father of two who's not just a voice actor but a storyteller at heart. Whether he's diving into the depths of Gotham City or bringing characters to life on Twitch, his passion for story-driven games like Batman will keep you on the edge of your seat. Get ready to explore the world of gaming, family life, and the art of voice acting with a truly caped crusader of the streaming world. Welcome in.
I don't know how known I am, but I stream on Twitch under the name Daddy Bat Night. I begin everyone with the line, "Hello there." So I guess I should do that here. I have just started to dip my toe into attempting voice acting for nonprofit fan stuff. And instead of Daddy Bat Night on there, they just call me DB Night.
Oh, nice. Have you done many voiceovers, and what were they for?
I've done a couple of things for a group called Scyther Audio. They do a couple of good, at least in my opinion, really good audio dramas they've done X-Men is, I think, their biggest claim to fame, and then Power Rangers being a close second. I'm a big Power Ranger nerd, so that's what got my attention. And then I've done a couple of lines for Avengers audio drama that they've got started. They also have a side channel called the Scyther Fantasy Wrestling. I believe I'm saying that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a hybrid show. It's on YouTube, and wrestling matches are done using video game footage that they edit to tell the story they want to tell. And all of the promos, which is what a wrestler calls when they're talking on the microphone, all the promos are done are voice acted. So I'm doing the voice of CM Punk, The Miz, and Orange Cassidy.
Oh, nice. Is there anything else you would want viewers to know about you, or any self-promos you would like to put in here?
Let's see. I am, the name, as I said, is Daddy Bat Night. My tagline on my Twitch streams is Bat Night's the name, stories of the game. I tend to stick to more narrative-based games. I don't do a lot of online multiplayer, at least not on stream. If you want to know a summary about me, my wife loves to, ever since I hit a certain milestone in my birthday, my wife says that her husband is 40, looks like he's 30, thinks like he's 20, and acts like he's 10.
That's why it says that in your description.
That is exactly why it says that. Yep.
So you say you're married. How long have you been married?
We've been married 11 years now.
Nice. Congratulations.
We've been married 11 years now. That's actually not the funny part. A lot of people scoff, not at the fact that we've been married 11 years, but the fact that we were dating almost 3 months before we got married.
Just 3 months?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Our first date was on November 3rd, and we got married January 22nd.
So it was instant love.
I like to think so.
Where did you two meet?
We met at a bar, actually, but it was a themed bar where we used to live. There was a place called the Browncoat Pub and Theater, which is a reference to old sci-fi show Firefly, which is why I started going there in the first place, because I'm a huge Firefly fan.
Yeah.
And Browncoat Pub and Theater is a reference to Browncoat Puppet Theater, but that's a show joke where they would do actual plays and karaoke and things of that nature. We met during open mic stand-up comedy. And it was the first time I had ever attempted to do open mic stand-up. And I've joked that my comedy career didn't take off, but I got a wife out of the deal, so.
That was a pretty good deal.
Right?
Can you share your personal journey and how you arrived at your current beliefs, and what are they?
What if I had to claim anything? I believe I go with agnostic. Most agnostics, or most people that claim agnostics, are just atheists with commitment issues. But the way I've had it explained to me, agnostic is the belief that there is a higher power out there somewhere, but I choose not really to define it, because I've seen in life and everything to not believe. I'm not a complete atheist. I believe in, higher power, supernatural world. I just don't think any organized religion has nailed it completely. So I like the idea of agnostic because I get to pick and choose which ones I like. I was actually raised Southern Baptist.
Never could have figured that. Never would have figured.
Yeah. Picking on my voice again. But no, when I was a kid, I went to church every Sunday. But when you don't go to church because you believe it, you go to church because you're told to.
Exactly. You're made to.
Yeah. And so I, told back then, as I got a little older, there were things of baptism or Christianity and things about that while I'm not saying I'm against it, just didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, for example, it's written in the commandments, thou shalt not kill, and yet more blood has been spilled in the name of Christianity than any religion ever. Amen. So it's like, it didn't make any sense to me. I started genuinely reading any and every religion-based text I could find. When you're a kid, you don't have a lot of access to that stuff. But I was looking into everything from Christianity to Wicca to, what I think some claimed was like a satanic Bible at one point. I don't remember a lot from it, but I remembered I wanted to I was out on this weird quest where I went to literally find, the impression was I was going to find a text that I could point to this and say, all of that makes total sense to me. And here I am 41 years old, and I still have yet to find one that across the board makes total sense to me. Hence the tag agnostic.
Yeah, understandable. I think a lot of people have just had things explained to them in an incorrect manner that they just don't understand. Professor, the actual one who introduced me to you in the first place, suggested that I do common biblical misconceptions, and you just named one about the killing. But did you know that there's actually a difference between murder and killing? Big difference.
Well, I mean, I am prone to speak in fluent movie references, and the first one that pops in my head is from a throwaway line from Wayne's World. Ed O'Neill's character, Glenn, looks into the camera and says, "So why is it that if a man kills another man in battle, it's called heroic? Yet if he kills a man in the heat of passion, it's called murder?" He's cut off before he can finish the statement, but that was the first thought that went through my head when you said that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to review why there's a difference between the two. How do you navigate and respect the diverse religions and beliefs around you, especially in your family life? Like, does your wife believe the same, or?
My wife is actually, she tells me quite often that she is a very devout Christian. She was raised in a very sheltered household. In a lot of ways, we make the running gag that I'm the devil that took away the innocent angel, because she claims she didn't watch much or any television at all before I came along. I've started to figure out that that's not true. She may not have had a choice in what she watched, but she did watch them. But no, it was a very big deal to her to try to go to church as often as she could. I mean, we both are working our tails off, so unfortunately, she doesn't get a lot of time to do that.
Yeah.
But it was a big selling point for me for a long time to try to get a job where I could go to church with her, not because cared particularly, but I knew it meant a lot to her, and so I was trying to do that. And I told her, she's like, if this doesn't mean that much to you, then why are you bothered? And I was like, well, because A, it matters to you, and B, because I don't go out of my way to go to church. And I may grumble a little bit, because I grumble about a lot of things, but for whatever reason, I always feel better coming out of a church than I felt when I went into it.
Yeah, I get that. It's like dragging a demon into the church, and you're free when you walk out.
Okay.
Okay.
I've never been able to explain or figure out why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know enough to be able to come to grips with the fact that I always feel better leaving than I do when I walk in.
Yeah.
And that's not for the same cynical reason as how happy I am leaving work. It's something feels lighter. I feel better when I leave. So it's not the world's biggest deal to me, but it's not something that I'm against.
Yeah. What values or principles guide your decisions and actions in everyday life, and how do they shape your relationship with others? Hard question.
Well, kind of, just because I don't know necessarily how to put it into words. I think it's just it's the simple aspect of, I mean, it's a cliche, but there's the whole aspect of do unto others.
Yeah.
And if I'm in my more cynical moods, it's a do unto others before they do unto you. At the end of the day, I don't know if I fully believe in the metaphysical version of karma, but I talk a lot about it. And it's just one of those, a friend of mine and I used to joke of what we referred to as the karma bank.
Mm-hmm.
And how we looked at it was whenever something bad happens, that's you putting a deposit in the karma bank. If something good happens, then you've made a withdrawal. And so the idea is to try not to withdraw more than you've deposited.
Yeah.
And so I get talked at a lot. Because I grumble, I growl, I am easily aggravated, but not easily angered.
Yeah.
However, once I get to the point of anger, anyway.
Yeah.
My wife likes to joke that the difference between the two of us is I'm firecrackers, she's an atomic bomb, in that I go off a lot more frequently, but my temper tantrums are over just as quickly as they show up.
Oh yeah.
Hers will build and build and build and build, and then when it finally does let go, nothing is safe for the next 5 years.
That's the way it is with females. I don't know why.
But back to the previous topic, I basically just try to always put myself in the other, or try to put myself in the other person's shoes and try to do as little to another person that would aggravate me.
Yeah, like doing to others. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't aggravate this person, or I wouldn't say this to this person because I wouldn't want it said to me.
I also am I call it, I've read too many comics. I don't know what excuse you can give, but the fact of the matter is, I am a big fan of doing things, sounds so weird to say this word, but honorably.
Explain.
Like from something as simple as a video game, like it aggravates. I'd rather lose knowing I played to the best of my ability than win knowing I cheated
Yeah.
or used an exploit or something like
Yeah.
that. It's how I look at my gaming. It's how I look at my life. And so it's the reason that I get so frustrated when in certain things, because certain games, there's very easy ways. I play a lot of fighting games.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you run into situations where people have found an exploit that the game hasn't patched up yet. And so they'll exploit the hell out of it just to make sure that they get the victory. And because the victory is all that matters. As I just said, I'd rather lose knowing I played, air quote, honorably than win knowing I had to cheat to do it.
I get that.
And it's the same thing. And I try to instill that in my kids as well, is because I've literally seen my daughter get overwhelmed. She was doing a race one time, and you're supposed to, it was a relay, run all the way to one side, then run all the way back. Well, she got tripped up. By the time she got up, the person she was racing was already to that point and turned around. So she tried to turn around and go ahead and come back. I yelled, "No, kiddo, you can't do that. Run all the way to, you have to run all the way to the other end." When she got to me, she was so upset. She was like, "But the other person was about to, do this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you gotta play the right way. There's no, you're not doing the shortcut. That's not how we do things. Try to earn what I get, but at the same time, I feel sometimes like the system seems to be out to get me."
Yeah. I think the system is out to get everybody, but that's another story.
And unfortunately, I think the ones that are trying to live their lives, the right way are often the ones that are the most hot. I don't know what else to say there.
Yeah. How do you discuss faith and spirituality with family members with different beliefs?
My wife in particular, that was a cross we had to bear. I actually was worried when we first started dating. She let me know her, religious standing and everything. And I was completely straight up with her. It's like, look, that's not my thing. If this is a deal breaker, go ahead and leave now. But she seems to have told me for years that it's not a deal breaker for her, because while she has her beliefs and I have mine, she says, morally speaking, and how I try to teach our kids, it's funny to us because we've seen the show. Okay, I mentioned Firefly earlier. You ever seen the show Firefly?
I don't think so.
Okay. Short version, the skinny white guy pilot is married to, for all intents and purposes, Benny Goddess, that is this like warrior chick named, I'm exaggerating a little, but the husband's name is Hoban Washburn. He just goes by Wash. His wife's name is Zoe. And Zoe is this very capable soldier warrior woman, and he is a wisecracking pilot on the spaceship. And he says to somebody, a lot of people don't get Zoe and me up close. And that's the same thing. I've compared me and my wife to Wash and Zoe. I've compared us to Han Solo and Princess Leia. We are the relationship that on paper doesn't make any goddamn sense. But while we don't have a lot in common as far as like our hobbies or even our religious standing, when it comes to how to raise our kids, where the priorities lie as far as like bills or, groceries, or making sure that we're properly employed and everybody's, bringing in their income and doing their part. All those things tend to line up. So we joke that we agree on all the important stuff.
Yeah, that's what truly matters.
So I have on multiple occasions, I'm not a great fighter, but unfortunately, when you have the temper that I've had over the course of my life, it tends to happen. And I have on multiple occasions gotten in somebody's face because they were insulting somebody's religion. And I'll step up and be like, not cool, or back down or something like that. And they're like, "What do you care? You don't even believe that stuff." I'm like, "I know, but they do." You're not going to sit here and, talk smack about somebody else's belief system, because I've had enough crap happen in my life to where sometimes whatever your faith is, sometimes your faith can be all that gets you through the day. And so who in the hell are you to want to belittle somebody else's beliefs, whether it's what you believe or not?
Yeah.
Because it's not yours doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the world to them.
Exactly. So who or what has significantly influenced your perspective, and what have you learned from them? Like, who do you look up to?
Most people, at least I assume, would probably say something along either they'd pick a religious figure or they'd pick, a family member or something like that. All my family and I are on good terms right now. Childhood was not the easiest situation for me. There was a lot that happened that I'll answer if asked directly, but I'm not going to bring it up on my own. There was a lot that happened that shook me and kind of shook my faith in adults or my adults when I was a kid. So unfortunately, I've taken a lot of inspiration from fiction.
Explain.
I joked about part of that speech. I said the whole thing about, agnostics being atheists with commitment issues was part of a video where a guy was explaining. Now, again, this is his information. I've just memorized it. I could be completely off base. I don't know that stuff. But from what I understand, the original Gnostics were people that during the whole debate over whether or not the Bible was verbatim, word for word, this is what happened, or if it was just people taking creative license during that whole debate argument, which still goes on to an extent. At one point when that was at its height, the first Gnostic people were people that looked at that argument and said, whether it's fact or whether it's creative license, who cares? It's still good advice. So we'll just roll with it. And so the video then jokes about, I think the world needs a modern update of agnostic, which basically means, we're not saying that this person is these person or this people are real. We're just, it's still good advice. And so by that, the running gag was I've joked that I'm going to start the Church of Batman, not because I believe Batman is, but it's just because of the morals of you do bad things, you get a receipt. And A, and B, Batman has a line that in most mediums he won't cross. So it was a gag. I didn't mean it to be taken seriously, but I did have a very devout Christian friend that when I started making posts on my Facebook page about the Church of Batman, I guess thought I was serious and unfriended me because I was being blasphemous. Or
I was about to say that's blasphemy.
I was insulting her ways, and I'm like, that wasn't my intention. I was trying to be funny. I wasn't saying I was going to actually start a church.
Yeah.
For no other reason than I'm not that well organized.
Well, what people tend to misunderstand is a church was never meant to be a building. The humans on earth were supposed to be the church that built. Do you get it?
That's fair. And I've actually heard that before.
Yeah. So everything that you take into your body, everything you think, everything you eat, everything you do, you're supposed to do it for God. We are the body. There was never supposed to have been a steeple about whose steeple was bigger than others. I've heard some really nasty stories about churches with big steeples on top, and we won't go into that, but you can look that up if you want to. But the thought that it has to be inside of a building was just stupid to begin with, because it says in the Bible, where 3 or more are gathered, I am there. So my church is on my back porch with my husband, my oldest son, and my youngest while my daughter sleeps. So yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions that I could probably help you with. I feel like a lot of agnostics, I had one come into my chat once, and we actually wanted to do a podcast or something in our streams, but I was so terrified at the time. I don't think I'd been streaming a couple months, and I was this big devout Christian, still am, but I don't shove it in your face as much, and you probably wouldn't notice it by the way I act in my stream. I'm very violent.
I actually had no idea until we started this interview.
I am.
You started asking these questions. I'm like, I'm noticing a theme here.
Yeah. So it's not, I didn't start it for a Christian podcast, but I wanted to keep it as Christian as I could. Like, I wanted to understand humans on why they don't acknowledge or care anything about God. So I myself was raised Southern Baptist, forced to go to church every time the church doors opened. So of course, when I was old enough, I ran as far away from it as I could. I never, ever wanted to go back. But then I noticed a pattern of everything I did just kept falling apart, or I was ruining everything with my bad attitude, the way I was thinking. Oh, I have to do this. It's no, I get to do this. So I started digging into my life, and when everything started falling apart, I just literally, have you just ever felt so heavy that you fell on the ground and just started crying?
Without the falling on the ground part, yes.
Okay, so my life was just like, this is not going the way it's supposed to be going right now. Why is all this is happening. So I don't know why, but I just fell to the floor and I said, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. Take it away. So I went to sleep. I don't know how far off from that time period it was, but I took a nap. And has your wife or your kid ever woke you up with like a gentle kiss on your forehead or something just to see if you would startle?
We made a running gag of it for a little while when my oldest was small. Of my wife and I would, if it was one of those rare mornings where we got to sleep in, would lay there on purpose. If we heard her getting close, we would lay there on purpose and act like we're asleep, and then wait until she gives us a kiss and be like, oh, "The magic kiss woke me up," like very very Disney. Yeah, we've done that quite a bit. I had one morning where, not really relevant to your question, I guess, but it popped in my head. I happened to be asleep and I wasn't wearing a shirt, and I have the Power Ranger lightning bolt tattooed on my back.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help it. I was laying on my stomach. My daughter crawls into bed. I was going to roll over, but I'm like, no, I'm here. I might as well stay because she's already in the bed. So she crawls it and she stops. I can tell where she's at because, I can tell where she's looking because she's, where she is on my back.
Yeah.
I hear her whisper, "Daddy's a Power Ranger?" And I couldn't help it. I started laughing, and I'm like, well, that killed the whole magic kiss thing because, Daddy just woke up.
You were outed.
But no, they've done something similar. They'll come up and just do like a little gentle shake, or my daughters will come up and give me a kiss on the cheek.
Well, my husband does that. He'll kiss me on the forehead or something just to see you smile when you open your eyes. So I was napping and it just felt like someone just lightly touched my forehead, like where they say your third eye is. And I just heard someone say, "Wake up." I literally just got up from my nap, so I didn't think anything about it, but I felt the urge to just go get every single Bible and just sit and read it because I didn't understand a word I was reading in the first place. So for our anniversary, that's what I asked for. I want Bibles. So we went and got 2 of the thickest Bibles you could find, and I just dove in deep. And I found so many things that I didn't understand as a kid, or I was lied to as a kid. You know how the Southern Baptists put the fear of God in you? Well,
I have no idea what you're talking about. Looks back and forth suspiciously.
Yeah. Well, there were so many things that I didn't understand. And I was so angry that people had kept this from me. So I thought, okay, I'm here on Twitch. I'm here on YouTube. Why don't I just share a little bit of what I know with people that maybe don't know? So I had an agnostic come into my chat, but she was more of the aggressive, I'll fight you, argue with you type. Like, I'll prove you wrong. Do you ever have those?
I've run into a few.
Yeah.
And not just, I don't think the question was just of agnostics. I've had those of any religion.
Yeah, I've had atheists. Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to do more of she was streaming, I was streaming, let's talk about this. But I thought it was going to get so nasty because you have 2 people that believe different things and then their chat is just as nasty as they were. So I felt like I was going to get attacked. I went into certain Discords and I asked if I could get a moderator that would just back me, just watch my back and the bad things that people might say. Nobody would stand up with me.
I'd offer, but I don't know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I built a small community. There's like 10, 13 people in my Discord. They might be 5 people that actually talk and are active. And one of them is Professor. And he was like, "Hey, why don't we talk about this on your podcast?" So here we are.
Me being you and him.
Oh, no. It started with just interview people in my community. So I went down my list and I started with whoever volunteered first. So I think I started with Marvelous Mist, and then it went down to one of my OG community members. And when I got to Professor, I was like, he's like, "You're doing a great job. Here's some ways that you can improve." So I'm like, "But I'm running out of people to interview. What do I do?" He's like, "You use us for connections." So he gave me your name and Polly, and here we are. And after you guys, I don't know what I'm going to do. So not many people hang with Peace Warrior. So
unfortunately, I don't know enough about my followers to be able to tell you, "Hey, you should talk to this guy." Like, now that I know a little bit more of your leaning of where this interview was, it does remind me of somebody in my personal life, but I'm not giving that information.
Can you tell me some of your Southern traditions that you've passed down to your children?
Well, I may have been born in Atlanta, but as I think I said this before we started recording, I've lived on every state on the East Coast between New York and Florida. So I don't know how Southern I am, especially not enough to pass it down, other than trying to insist that my, kids say, please and thank you. And I have noticed that if their mom tells them to do something, and my oldest, she's only 9, but she's already starting to develop into that teenager attitude.
Oh, God.
And my wife will tell her to do something and she'll walk away and she'll go, "Okay." And apparently my common way of saying that is the proper answer would be, and then she goes, yes, ma'am. I'm like, better.
Yeah.
So,
You just
uh,
answered my next question was how was growing up in the South influenced your approach on fatherhood?
but
It's yes, ma'am, no, yeah, ma'am.
my wife jokingly refers to it as the dad voice. And
Oh, yeah.
it actually got me in trouble with my sister years ago, a long time ago. This kid is now in her teens, but when she was, I want to say 5 or 6, we were at my mom's wedding, and my sister asked me to keep an eye on her oldest, who, for the sake of this, let's just call her Diana. And and the reason I need a name is because the statement won't make sense otherwise. But told her, okay, they told me keep an eye on Diana and don't let her get near the awning, the little tent they'd set up for doing an outdoor wedding. So they had like a little tent entryway set up.
Yeah.
Don't let her get near the tent. And I'm like, okay. So Diana and I are playing, and she starts doing this weird thing where she's running around in circles. I notice the circle gets a little bigger, and then the circle gets a little bigger. And every time she makes her lap and she's starting to go toward the tent, she's watching me. I'm not saying anything. But then once she gets wide enough to where I can now see that her little circle is going to intercept the tent, I went, Diana, stop. That was all I did. I said 2 words.
You
But
used the voice.
my mom laughed it off and said, oh, we're just going to say Knight, because again, not saying names, but she goes, my mom says, well, Knight just channeled his dad voice, and I wasn't a dad then. But my brother-in-law pulls me aside, and I get talked at about how I'm not supposed to, yell at his kid or whatever. And I was like, well, to be fair, I was not yelling. I was just saying this in an authoritative voice. Number 1, she didn't get upset. Number 2, she stopped. And number 3, she and I started playing immediately after. So clearly I didn't upset her. I don't know why you're getting so upset at me. And unfortunately, this didn't make him feel any better.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first example of what I've called the dad voice. And now it comes out with my kids.
Yeah. What was one of your biggest lessons you've learned about fatherhood since becoming a dad?
I think the first one that pops in my head of all things, because I have always been, I said the description about, it's like he's 20, acts like he's 10. I've always seen myself, I get told constantly how I'm immature, I'm way too chatty, I don't take anything seriously, et cetera, et cetera. So I got deeply frightened when I found out my wife was pregnant. Like I never let her know that because I didn't want to upset her during the pregnancy, but I was terrified. As I said, my parents and I are good now, but I don't know if you could say I had the best parental example growing up. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what to draw from. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I was terrified. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And then the day my daughter was born, my wife was in labor for a very long time. And there was a moment where my wife asked everybody to clear out of the room except for her mother. Something was said, I think after my wife asked everybody to clear the room, something was said between her mother and my mother, which apparently whatever was said pissed my mom off. And she's sitting here getting, like pacing and getting all, huffy and everything. And all I asked was, what's wrong? And my mom started to more or less jump down my throat about, how dare that woman say this to me and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I finally I didn't yell. I didn't even do dad voice. I just, kind of put my foot down vocally. And I was like, will you knock it off? My mom looks at me like I'd slapped her and said, what? I said, there's more important things going on right now than you getting your feelings hurt. Can you please dial it down right now? Because we don't want to stress my wife out any more than she already is. And my mom got a look on her face that I couldn't decipher. It wasn't until after everything had calmed down a little bit, my mom and I were having a meal together in the hospital, and she smirked and she went, you'll be fine. I said, what do you mean? She said, as much as everybody gives you a hard time about, immature or whatever, she's like, the fact that I was admittedly throwing a temper tantrum, you put your foot down and said, there's more important things. And, you were right. She's like, you've got it in you. As far as dad goes, you're going to be fine.
And that was the best thing to hear from your mom.
It really felt good.
Yeah.
A very close second was, later meeting Kevin Conroy and having him tell me we've all got to find our Batman somewhere. That meant a lot.
Yeah. So how do you make time for yourself and your interests while managing the responsibilities of family life?
Streaming helps.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, the stream was an idea of streaming was my wife's idea. played with the idea before, and I was constantly on my personal Facebook page, was always posting clips and such of me playing video games because that's probably my biggest hobby. And so it was I was constantly posting clips, and I'd had people before going, "Why don't you just stream?" And I was like, "Why would I do that? Because I can't get people that know me to watch the stuff I post on Facebook. I'm never going to be able to get strangers to watch my stuff."
Understandable.
And so I what's the word? I avoided it for a very long time. It was a little over a year ago. Like I've had a Twitch account for years, but that was just because there were certain like shows and wrestling and stuff that was only on Twitch. So I came up with an account so I could watch that stuff. I had no intention of streaming myself. And then my wife brought up the idea, I want to say a little over a year ago, of I was just getting frustrated and I wanted some kind of outlet. I wanted something to do. And she went, "Well, why don't you start streaming?" And I was like, "We've been through this." And she held up a hand and said, "No, no, no. You obviously love to play video games. You love to talk to people. You very rarely have a shortage of things to say. Just hop on Twitch." I said, "But nobody's going to watch. I'm going to be talking to thin air." He's like, "Okay, but at least you get to talk." And even if you have an audience of 3 people, that's still somebody watching. And yet here I am. I'm at last I looked 160, which again isn't a lot, but a lot more than I expected.
Yeah.
It's recently been brought to my attention. I have a lot going on between full-time job, full-time hubby, full-time dad, also streaming on Twitch. I'm the captain of an online gaming league team, and I'm attempting at all the voice acting stuff. So juggling a lot. Sleep is not my best friend right now.
Hey, the devil likes idle hands, so you might as well stay busy while you're here. So, what's the best piece of advice you've received from another father? Or have you ever received any good advice? Because let's face it, some of it is just crap that they give us.
Well, I mean, I had a buddy of mine tell me that, every parent wants to try to be the best parent in the world and tell you that they don't actually have a favorite, and they all actually do. And I'm like, "Well, no, I don't have a favorite necessarily, although I've joked that I have a favorite depending on what day you catch me."
Yeah, we've
You
all
know,
joked that at least once.
right. If the oldest is being a little bit of a pain in the butt, then I love the youngest.
Yeah.
I don't know. As far as nothing's coming to mind. So as far as parenting advice, I really don't know what I could answer there.
I didn't have very good parenting advice either. I mean, I turned out completely screwed up, so I don't think I should take any advice from them in the first place. So, how do you see your role as a father evolving as your kids get older?
Like, how have I seen it, or how do I foresee it?
How do you foresee it? Like right now, you're the Superman, Batman, Power Ranger, all of that. How do you think it will evolve as they get older?
Well, again, I feel like I keep detouring, but I always have these little stories associated with my
No,
answers.
I like stories. Stories
Um,
actually explain things better.
when my oldest was, she was only like, let's see, I think she was about 6. So her sister was 3. So, tiny, but anyway, we were watching, of all things, it was right around the time that Disney Plus became a thing. And so one of the first things I watched was a Goofy movie. I think the movie's funny, and it's something that I can watch with my kids.
Yeah.
And I hadn't watched it since I was in my late teens, early 20s. So obviously I related to the son, Max. Well, I'm sitting there, having a quiet day with my daughter, and she's in my lap. There's a scene where big car accident or something. It's a cartoon, they're fine. But the car ends up going down going down the river or whatever, and they're arguing back and forth. And I just wanted to take my little boy fishing. And Max is like, "I'm not your little boy anymore, Dad. I've grown up. I have my own life now." And Goofy says, "I know that. I just wanted to be part of it."
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, you could hear, I didn't do it just then, but you could hear the crack in his voice when he said, "I just wanted to be part of it."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there with my daughter in my lap, and I'm tearing up, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, am I crying over the Goofy movie?" But my daughter turned and looked at me and said, "Daddy, what's wrong?" And I said, "Sweetheart, if I'm being honest, the movie's upsetting me because that's what Daddy's afraid of." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we're buddies right now, but you're going to get older and then you're not going to want Daddy to be around anymore." And she instantly, got this look, like this terrified look, and she put her arms around my neck and she's like, "No, Daddy, that's not going to happen. We're going to be best buddies forever." I hugged her back and I'm like, "I hope so, kiddo, but I don't see it happening." Like, it's the coming to grips with the fact that both my kids right now will tell you their dad is their best friend.
Mhm.
I know I've only got a handful of years before just the mere sound of my voice is going to annoy the snot out of them. So, I mean, I guess in that regard, all I can do is be there when they need me and try not to be too pushy when they don't. Because at the end of the day, I'm afraid that if I shelter them or if I take care of things too much for them, then they won't be able to stand on their own. And at the end of the day, I want them to be able to do that. Because I've joked that my oldest is going to be able to take over the freaking world because she's got her mom's brains and my outgoing personality, which is really going to be frightening.
Mhm.
Because my wife is a brilliant person. She's one of the smartest people I know. She can manage. I mean, I used to say that she could take, when we first started seeing each other, I was only driving a taxi. And so not exactly raking in the big bucks. She could take my meager income and stretch it so far past what I would be able to or capable of. She is so smart, such a good tactician in that way, but an introvert from her head to her toes. And yet I have absolutely no problem with much of the spotlight being on me as I possibly can. I'm not saying I'm dumb, but I just, my brain doesn't work like hers does. So my running gag is I can already see hints of she's got her mom's brains and my personality. This girl is going to either be, president or, ruling the my running joke was she's going to be ruling the world by the time she's 12. But I still got 3 years, so we'll see.
Yeah. I love the way you honor your wife. That's the way people are supposed to talk about their spouses.
My youngest, on the other hand, she frightens me because
My
we
youngest
joke
scares me too.
my friends and I used to do this thing we called the casting game, where we would, if there was a movie series or book series or whatever we were into that happened to have a lot of characters, we'd start declaring our friends characters from that whatever. You are this character of that series. Well, here I am, a grown ass man, and I still do it. And we have joked without hesitation that if my youngest, is female, but if my youngest is any, superhero or Marvel related character, she's freaking Rocket Raccoon. Because number one, we started calling her a raccoon because she was tiny, liked to get into small spaces, and if you weren't watching her, you were gonna lose half your stuff because she loved to get into stuff just
Yeah.
because she could. Now she started to voice she loves fireworks, and anytime there's an explosion in one of Daddy's action movies, she's like, blow up, stuff blew up and everything like that. I'm like, oh God, she's rambunctious and likes to see things go boom. She is Rocket freaking Raccoon. So, and we were joking about Halloween costumes this year, and she wanted to be Tiny Tina from the Borderlands franchise.
Oh yeah. She'd be
Yeah,
perfect for it.
it's frightening. She's only 6.
Oh wow. Um
Tina's 13. I'm afraid of that
oh.
age.
So what are your goals and hopes for your family in the future? Like what are you
Okay.
guys trying to achieve together? Like
I know my wife wants to get out of this state.
mhm.
We are currently living, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. We're currently living in Georgia, but we were living in North Carolina when we met. The only reason we had to move to Georgia was because a big storm hit and we lost our apartment. We had nowhere else to go, and I have family down here.
Mhm.
So my dad was like, "Look, we have a spare room." Actually, he had 2 spare rooms. Like, you and your wife can stay in the one room, and then the girls can stay in the other room until you get on your feet, which, my parents were clutch in that regard. But now with where I currently work, I only make just enough money to get by. We can't really put money aside. And it's weird. I lived in the Carolinas for the better part of 13 years, and I had people in this state and various other places that were like, "Man, I wish you lived closer. We'd see each other so much more. Man, I miss hanging out with you. Man, it sucks you live so far away." Then I moved to Georgia, and my cynical comment has been, I practically live in some people's backyards, and I still don't ever see anybody. Then I know it's hard on my wife because as much as I fuss about being in the area where my family is and I still don't see anybody, she left all of hers, and we both are just tired of being an island. So I know that's one of the big ones is they've always said it takes a village, but we're still trying to find ours.
Yeah, you got to go through several villages cuz there's a lot of idiot villages out there.
I've had for years, my goal has been, because I try to be realistic without being too cynical.
Yeah.
the house market being what it is, my running line has been I have what I jokingly refer to as my master plan. I call it Operation Full House,
Mhm.
which obviously a reference to the old 80s show, but it was trying to find another couple friends of ours that have kids that we, me and my wife, them and their spouse, and then all of our kids could just find like this gigantic house to, move into together. Unfortunately, we don't really know anybody that fits all of our criteria.
Yeah.
So my running gag is short of Mr. Beast handing me a new house, I don't know what the flark I'm going to do about that.
Yeah. Same. Okay. So, are there any new projects or endeavors you're excited about pursuing?
The Scyther stuff, I'm still doing 1 or 2 line roles here and there. My goal is, I mean, I've wanted to be a voice actor since I was, I want to say like 13. There was a video game series called The Legacy of Kain. And specifically, the game was called Soul Reaver. It was a vampire story. And one of the behind the scenes things was you get to see voice actors standing in their booth recording their lines. And I've seen reviews, I saw reviews back in the day where people were like, that's what you get for beating the game, watching the people record the lines. This is so boring. Something about it hooked me. And I was like, wait, that's an option? And so that's been a dream. And like I said, it's been over 20 years now, and I've never really pursued it until just recently. I started doing the Scyther stuff. So the voice acting thing's always been a goal. So I'm sitting here with a weird, like, multi-step plan of, okay, I've done a couple of 1 or 2 line roles. I'd like to get a recurring one, maybe a couple of recurring ones, so I can put together some type of reel, so I can maybe someday get a actual paying voice acting gig, even if it's not enough to pay the bills. If I just get enough to get paid to say that I did,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome to me.
Have you ever done any voice acting in any of your streams, like in your gameplay?
I did once completely unprompted. I was playing Batman Arkham Knight, and I didn't realize that they had scenes in the game that would cause your stream to go blank. They had blocked scenes in the game. We were right at the end of the game, and then all of a sudden it says, your stream is entered a blocked scene. Like, it popped up on my screen. I'm going, well, what does that mean? And I look over at my laptop, and I'm seeing just a blue screen. I'm kind of having because this was only like the 3rd or 4th time I'd ever streamed at all.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting here having a momentary panic attack. Like, I'm like, hey, chat, what's going on? Can y'all see anything? Like, what are you seeing right now? And somebody popped up. We can't see anything, and we can't hear anything other than you. And I'm like, the whole point of my stream was to try to share the story. And here we are at a pivotal story point. They can't see anything. And I don't know what possessed me. And it was like, now you have come to I can't remember exactly what the line was, but it was Scarecrow talking to Commissioner Gordon. Whenever Scarecrow would speak, I started to talk like this versus talking like this when it was Gordon. I was trying to relay what was being said
Yeah.
so they didn't miss out on the story. And other than that, that's the only one I can think of me trying to voice act in stream.
Okay, so I have a Red Dead crew, and it consists of...
As in Red Dead Redemption?
Yes. We do voice acting and role plays. I have Professor and Demon. They're my only 2 other members. We do voice acting when we play our video games. So we create the character, their backstories, everything, and then you become the character in the role play. We were doing that in GTA, Red Dead.
I saw Six Demon doing that in GTA.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it extended to Red Dead, and I didn't know Professor was doing it too, but that makes total sense. Those 2 are often collaborating.
Demon found me, and then Professor found me. So yeah, we were doing voice acting, and they were really funny. I had a blast, but then everyone got busy. So if I ever do another one of those and we can get everyone together, I will gladly invite you, because I think you could do some really cool voices.
Aw.
Okay, so what's the one thing you want people to know about you?
One thing I want. You know what? Just because I've had to tell the story so many times, I will tell this story now here. So, as far as my name, Daddy Bat Knight, I bring this up because the reason that I'm Daddy Bat Knight on stream, but I'm DB Knight when I'm voice acting, is when I got my first Avengers audio drama role, the guy asked me, okay, so how do you want to be billed? Do you want to build with your actual name, or do you want me to go with your handle? I'll stick with my handle. My joke was, you can have my name when I get a real, I was kidding, but I was like, when I get a big role, I'll use my name. I was like, we'll just stick with Daddy Bat Knight for now. He's like, all right, cool. And then the next day he goes, all right, so flag on the play. I was like, what's wrong? He said, I can't call you Daddy Bat Knight. I was like, why not? He said, apparently it was told to me that the higher ups have an issue with having the word daddy in your name. I was like, why? He said, well, because it can be misconstrued as something else. I was like, but it's not. I'm an actual dad. He goes, I know that. A stranger that's listening to this thing and hears Daddy Bat Night doing this line may not. So you're gonna have to come up with something else. And I just off the top of my head went, I don't know, DB night then. And he actually goes, okay, no problem. And then after a minute, I said, that actually does sound kind of cool. And he replied, you beat me by like 5 seconds. I was about to say something similar of that's a pretty fire stage name, DB Knight. I was like, all right, cool, we'll roll with that then.
That
As
is a
far as
really
the
cool
origin
name.
story, as far as the origin story of my name, my daughter, when she was around 3, I had a Batgirl storybook that I would read to her to tuck her in because I'm raising a way too smart for her own good little redhead. And so obviously I'm a Batman fan. So I joke that I'm raising the next Barbara Gordon. But so there may have been some attempting coaching there, but she's picked her own path. She doesn't like girl. She likes Harley Quinn, unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
But at the time, I was reading her Batgirl storybook. I've tucked her in, and I start to walk away, and she goes, "Daddy." I stop and I go, "What is it, sweetheart?" She goes, "Are you Batman?" I wasn't sure what she'd said, so I just repeated. I was like, "Am I Batman?" She goes, "Uh-huh." I went, "No, sweetheart, I'm not." And it was adorable seeing this little 3-year-old like with the wheels turning in her head. And then she just kind of like does this little half smile, nods, and goes, "You're Batman," and lays down. And so I asked my wife, I was like, does she think I'm trying to protect my identity? Like, what was that? And Daddy Bat Night is a direct call out to that story and to my daughter in particular. I am a father of 2 whose daughter was convinced that once upon a time that her daddy was Batman. Since I didn't want to just say Batman, I put Bat Night. Saying Bat Night instead of Batman also lets me do all kinds of weird catchphrases like I don't have channel rewards for my Twitch page. I meant to set them up and I just haven't.
Mhm.
But the little currency you can come up with,
Yeah.
I call them nightcaps.
Oh, gotcha.
And then my tagline at the end of every stream is, I wish you all a great day and a night.
And a
It's,
night. Got it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that was also a call out to, I always tell my girls night when I tuck them in, but then I turned it around and made it a catchphrase for my streams.
Yeah.
So it's worked out. But yeah, there's the origin story of the name Daddy Bat Night. I am a father of 2 whose daughter was convinced that he was Batman. No, it's not some kind of weird kink or something. Although, if I'm being honest, there's a big difference between when my daughters call me daddy versus when mommy does.
Yeah. I think I asked you that in chat. How many people called you daddy?
I think even Demon on a couple of occasions will call me Bat Daddy.
Yeah. I think that's
And
where I've
then
heard it at.
I have a couple of other streamers I follow. If I pop up, they'll call me daddy, and they say that they do it on purpose just because they know it makes me squirm when somebody else other than my daughters or my wife does that.
Yeah, I get that.
So
Okay, so that concludes our podcast. I really appreciate you for joining me today.